everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar. So probably it's a morning, afternoon, and evening to most of you. So let's start. So this webinar is all about rationalize your Domino landscape. So and how we are going to take it. So let me have a quick introduction about myself. So I'm a SME in notes migration to different technologies in Maarga systems, and I'm leading in different projects here. So that's the quick intro about me. I'm just handing over to Franz. Franz, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, my name is Franz Walder from Pan Agenda. I'm a product manager in the Analytics Solutions portfolio, and I will talk a little bit about analyzing your Domino environment today.
Thanks, Franz. Yeah. So just want to give a quick intro about Maarga. So Maarga is a technology partner to mid-sized to large global enterprises across the world who are seeking efficient business process and seamless collaboration and digital transformation. So we were also now experts in doing migration stuffs and other collaboration kind of projects that we used to do. So let me move on to the next thing. So these are the other things that we do. So we do automate, migrate, collaborate, transform, and manage the enterprise applications. So before taking to the webinar, so I just want to understand the people who joined and what kind of roles they have. So Scott, can you run the poll?
Okay, great. We have a quick poll here. So the question is, what is the role you play in your IBM Notes journey? Are you IT management, part of the application team, part of the administration team, or none of the above? So this is a single select. So I guess you can mark in maybe your official role or maybe what you actually do. It's up to you. So we have over half of us have already voted. So let's get a few more in, and then we'll share the results to see where everyone is. That'll also help Rika and Franz to gear their presentation towards the majority here. All right, almost 80% of us have voted. So I will share the results. So 50% of us, of the audience, is application team, and 50% none of the above. So, all right.
Okay.
Interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Okay, we're back to your slides.
Okay. So considering the participation in this part of the application team, I think it will be very interesting why we are doing this analysis. So our webinar will cover this agenda, so why analysis is required and what is the methodology that we used to follow doing application analysis, and how ApplicationInsights helping us to do this, and what are the challenges that we are going to we may come across when we do this analysis. So before taking why analysis required, I just want to elaborate why we are doing this Domino analysis, some of the drivers, why it has started. So for this question, I myself have different answers. Probably some of the answers suits your expectation as well. So probably the first key thing is your mail migration is already planned, and you want application should not fail, and you want it to continue. So that could be the primary reason. And the next reason would be reducing the application server on your on-prem infrastructure. So you don't want to maintain the servers and people for that, and so there could be some cost effects that helps you to do more on your business. So that is one second thing. The third thing could be the migration of the applications out to a different platform and retire IBM Notes. So due to probably the maintenance cost of IBM software and probably your business and your clients, probably they move out to modernized applications and platforms. So but then you also have to migrate your applications to different platforms. So this is the third thing. And finally, you want your nodes to get modern functionality. So this is the case, like you want to like retain your nodes, but you want to have a better modern functionality. Probably you're having a want to apply new modern UI to your nodes screen, usual screen. So your functionalities and your records will still exist in nodes, but you have a better UI for your applications. So these are the key drivers that are the reason for the domino analysis. So why are we like talking about analysis? So it helps us to know, it will have various parts of it. So you want to know why analysis, what are the areas that will get impact if you do an analysis, and you also want to see what is the latest that you are going to get out of this analysis, and also what are the risks if you are going to migrate it, or if you are considering the all the aspects, what are the challenges that we are going to face. So all this will be covered when we do a proper analysis. So these are the main factors. Why are you jumping into an analysis of your domino environment? So this is a case study. So for a reference, so we have a client who's having lot of Lotus Notes databases with them. So so how this analysis helped them to drill down and finalize their list of applications that they wanted to migrate. So we will revisit the same slide later some point of time, but this is something I'm going to like always refer to this case study so that it gives you a better understanding why we are doing this analysis. So maybe probably you can keep this number in your mind. So when we initially take a report using our Pan Agenda tool, so it really helped a lot for us to run on each individual servers. So the client has about 32 servers with them, and so we ran the Pan Agenda instead, and like we used to get reports out of it, which helps us to drill down, and it helps us to arrive at a final list of databases that we analyzed. So let me like take you after all the analysis factors. Probably then we'll revisit the same slide so that you can have a complete understanding how it helps. What are the key factors for the analysis? we can see like three things. One is the usage of applications, and the second thing is the complexity of the application and the dependencies. So these three are the factors. Being the participants mostly are from the application team, so you can very well understand these are the key factors which helps us to identify what kind of application is that we are going to like analyze, how it can be classified, which gives you a better perspective of taking this analysis further. So the first one is going to be the usage analysis. So this slide will tell you how the usage analysis in detail we can do it. So as I told you, for the case study that I have taken, we had like some 80,000 databases that we have collected from the Pan Agenda report. So we will first consolidated databases across all the servers. That includes replicas, archives, logs, development databases, and instances. So a lot of things. Though there is no categorization that has been done at the initial level, but it will have all set of databases together at one point. So then what is the next step that we have to do? We need to identify the replicas, and we need to remove it from the list, because it doesn't make sense to keep that. So we need to like identify the unique replicas, and we need to filter out the archives, logs, development databases. So because your development team would have created a lot of databases probably in different servers other than the development server, probably for a backup purpose or something. So that also we need to filter it out. Also the instances and the mail databases, we won't, because we will not consider that for migration. So because that has been addressed separately, so we need to filter that out. Also the activity databases and some of the admin database like catalog and activity.nsf, stat databases, audit databases. And also we need to look at, is there any test databases that has been used by the different development teams or the QA team. Also any old version, templates, NTFs. So that all the other items, if we remove, we will get a data consolidated list. So again, this is not the final step. So again, we need to verify individually whether the databases in the specified path are still available. We're not sure. Probably there might be some business decisions that they don't want to use that application, or it could be similar application which is already there, so they don't want to use it. So we need to make sure whether it is available in a specified path. So but still, because this has taken effect, and this reduced lot of numbers from the consolidated list. And finally, our admin teams for monitoring effect, or to analyze some of the performance kind of, so they will be like using some kind of databases which we don't need to really consider for migration. So that also we need to get some list from the admin or business, and then we have to really take it out from the list. And finally, we can arrive at the list of databases that needs to be analyzed further, whether we are going to migrate, or how are we going to take a decision on those. So this is a detailed analysis that we do in terms of usage. So with this final list, what are the things that we're going to do? First, we have to identify the apps to be archived. Definitely. So from 80,000 databases, I have arrived to some 200. In 200 also, it doesn't mean that all the 200 we are going to migrate. So we need to really identify the apps to be archived, because when I migrated, still at some point of time the user might want to see the old records, how it is in notes. We might come across the situation. So we need to identify the application that needs to be archived. The data may be not be migrated, but really we need to keep it just for a reference. So we need to define an archival process. So it has these steps. So you need to designate a server for that to hold all your archive applications, and you need to make sure whether you have the proper access to restore and see the database, whether it has the data, and are you able to open the records on request. And the thorough testing needs to be done, and a system operating procedure needs to be defined for this procedure, so that probably in your organization you might having an L1 support or infrastructure support, so they need to know if they come across a request to archive a particular database. So these are the process to be followed, so that the archive database will be always accessible for the business users in terms of any immediate requirement. So this is something we can do after the analysis part. What are the challenges typically we face when we do this usage analysis? So as a notes users, we can always have this challenge. So one is to identify the common usage. So I might have the same functionality built on different databases, so we need to identify that, so that we can group that application. So similar functionalities that is available in 3 different applications, I can group it to one application. So I can present it to I can consider that for migration instead of planning 3 different applications. So that is one thing. And we need to ignore unused functions or modules, because probably if you're going to a different platform, probably the out-of-box features of that platform will address most of the functions, probably that is built as a custom development in Notes. So we need to identify if it is anything that is unused, or probably which is not at all required for the new system. That is something we need to identify, and we need to ignore it. And also we need to make sure the archiving dependencies. This is definitely a challenge thing for Notes people. So we need to actually identify the dependencies. While archiving, we need to archive the dependencies as well, so that it will ensure the the links, it will not get broken when we actually access the records. And we also, so from the usage analysis, you can see some of the applications probably people would have now rarely used it, but still it is very important. So say for example, if it is a finance kind of database, probably in the month end they'll be using it often, but it will not be used rest of the month. But that doesn't mean that it was very less used, so you can ignore. No, it is a key database for business to see the finance report. So we need to consider these factors, and these are some of the challenges where you will spend more time on it. The other challenges is to bring the Lotus Notes team, an SME and a business team. So because these are three group of people who can do this usage analysis and making this as a success thing. So these are the challenges that you can come across when you do a usage analysis. The next thing is complexity analysis. So complexity analysis, if you see as a notes developer or an application team, we will know like a particular database, how can we categorize it? Means by seeing its design or by the number of records it holds, and they're getting different input from different databases or a different interface. So there is a lot of factors that we need to think when we do a complexity analysis. Basically, don't decide only by the design. So how I'm saying this point, because a database might hold 100 views and it might have some 10 forms, but that doesn't mean that it is a heavy complex database. They would have like all very simple forms, probably a keyword form that is there, or the views might have the same pattern with it. So that doesn't mean it's a complex database. Probably another application might have some 2-3 forms, but probably it will hold some 100 to 150 field, and a view which is like have n number of categorization in between, and there might be an a complex calculation that can be involved, and a parent-child relationship could be there. So it doesn't mean that the design is not a really vital factor to decide the complexity. And also we need to consider the interfaces. Probably there will be an Excel upload utility that can be happen, or it could talk to a different system to get some reports, and based on that the calculations work. So all this we need to think when we do a complexity analysis, because this complexity analysis will help us. If it is a simple application, there could be some templates available in the designated platform which we can readily use and migrate data. But if it is going to be a very complex application, so we need to really think of whether we can customize it from scratch, or we can split into two. So that kind of decisions can be taken after this complexity analysis. And also we need to group some of the applications with similar functionality, maybe with a small difference. So we need to group that as well when we do the complexity analysis, so it will help us to identify how we can group it together. Again, for doing this we need to have some tools, and also a development or support team we need to be there, and an SME migration. Hope I think you will get to know more about on when Franz talk about Pan Agenda tool. Okay, so we have another poll just to understand how are you need to evaluate your Domino application. Scott, can you run the poll?
Okay, the second poll is up on the screen for you. This poll is, why would you need to evaluate your Domino applications? Because we are migrating mails and email, and IBM Domino is impacted, or we wish to reduce the cost of maintenance, we need to move applications to the cloud, or we need to move applications, looks like we got a duplicate here, my apologies. So, or other reasons why you are looking to possibly migrate and evaluate your applications. All right, so about half of us have voted. This is good. We really appreciate your feedback here. This will be interesting. All right, I'm going to share the results. So pretty much even here. 33% because you're migrating email and you want to make sure that IBM Domino's not impacted. 50% want to reduce the cost of maintenance. 33% we need to move the applications to the cloud, and 50% other.
Cool. Good to know about that. Like, people want to reduce the cost to maintain the Domino applications. Yeah. Right. Thanks,
Okay,
Scott.
we're back on your screen.
Sure. All right. So, yeah. So the next thing that we're going to discuss is about the dependency analysis, how it helps here. So as I told you earlier, so we need to be very keen on the dependency analysis, just like not to break the functionality of the existing applications also, and to understand how many internal dependencies are there, so that we can identify the links between the databases. So we can identify probably a database can be maintained only for the keyword purpose, just like countries, cities and all. So some of the key data that can be configured in single database where it will be referred by multiple applications. So we need to identify that kind of dependency, and we need to really think of how we are going to address the same in your target platforms. Also, we need to identify if there is any import data from different sources, whether it could be an Excel, or it could be from a BO report, or any other kind of SAP data, and any other web services is running to pull any data from a different source, or is there any LEA jobs that is running to for any updation process, and also is there any embedded language scripts that are there doing. So because this dependency is really helps us to identify whether the target platform is capable of addressing all these things. Probably your methodology will not change. You need to get the same data from that source anyway, but how your target platform is going to address these kind of things. How are you going to schedule your jobs to get that data updation part? Or is there any change required even in that internal and external dependency? So this helps you to take that decision when you do this analysis completely. And what are the challenges that we will face when you do the dependency? It is a key analysis, but it will take some time, because manual analysis, because it needs some manual effort. So it takes time. So that is something. And availability of other teams, because as I said, there will be an internal and external dependency. We definitely need some involvement from the other teams, other technology teams, and there is a challenge bringing them on the same call and get to know all the details in a single conversation. We have to do multiple discussions with multiple people at different level. So and also we need some architects also in this discussion, because in the target platform, how this can be addressed. Is there any alternate approach to what we are doing right now, just to avoid the probably the same pattern, or do we need to choose a different pattern when we do to overcome the dependency? So that is something is a challenge. Also, the lack of environment to test. So in production, LA jobs are running and everything is happening fine, and there is a some files will get referred from a drives or a file sharing system kind of thing, but we don't have the similar environment just to test and understand how this is really working. So we need to set it up, and then only we can do all those all sort of tests. And some of the applications will not have proper documentation, which is commonly we used to face, and we need to really dig into that application, what it is doing and why it is used, who are the users using it. So these are the key challenges that we used to face when we do a dependency analysis. And what are the challenges we faced with respect to design? So that is also we need to consider. So these are so whatever that you are seeing right now with the design challenges, everything will be a key thing that we need to know, because in Lotus Notes, some of the things are very easy to implement, but in the target platforms, it might not be. So we need to really see how these things are getting addressed over there. So some of the challenges will be like computed for display fields, attachments handling, and subforms, and date and time. Date and time, when it comes to data migration, the date and time thing will be very important, how this is getting carried over there, and is there any problem because of that. And also the search and advanced search. So search and advanced search is, it's just an, I can say it's an out-of-box feature in Lotus Notes, but in your target platform, you might be, you have to like customize it, and it involves a lot of effort. It's not as easy as that you can implement in Notes. So also the schedule agents, how the same type of scheduling part is available in your target platforms. How are we going to address that part? So these are the things that we need to really, think when when you do the analysis. Also the data quality. So data quality in the sense there should be there will be a link between some of the documents, parent-child relationship, and dependency documents. So that embedded views. So all sort of things will be coming when where you will be facing when you analyze by design and stuff. So as I told you, like I'm revisiting the same case study now. So it starts from usage analysis, right? So this is how the numbers drill down, and finally it arrived at. So we initially had 89,349 databases with us. So when we identify the replicas, it drastically came down to 3,000 plus. And then you can see at each step how we drill down the databases, and drastically there you can see a reduction in number at each step. And then you can see the final list of databases that we arrived is 236. So it's not even a 10% of what we got. So this analysis really helps us to really identify the key databases that we need to focus on. So it's look like the initial, when we say, oh, how many databases you have in your system, it's 89,000. Oh wow, this is a big thing that we are going to do, and the planning, everything will be aligned to that number. So but when you do this analysis, and when you take a help of a tool and do all this stuff, so really your focus will be the list of applications that needs to be focused will be very limited. So, and which is required really to for your business or for your process to continue. So that's the case study that I wanted to present today. So I think I'm done with our application analysis part from our side. So I'm hand over to Franz just to give the demo of an application insight in Domino analysis.
All right. Thank you so much for that, for those very interesting 30 minutes. I think many of the concepts that you have talked about, you will find here in Application Insights as, as part of the product, as part of what product does. And certainly if you were interested in hearing what you just heard, you will like what you will see. Let me first give you a very brief overview. I'm going to try to keep the slide reader as short as possible so we can jump over and look at the actual software. But I want to give you an overview what we do. User activity, nodes and web, is one of the key things that many of the things in Application Insights are about. Understanding who uses what is very important. The second part of that is design complexity and source code analysis. We gather all the source code of your Domino applications, gather them in our data warehouse, where you can then analyze them, or where it's analyzed after the different rules and certain things that we have set up. Key benefits are immediate information about consolidation and optimization potential. We're going to see that, see how that works in just a second. It gives migration support on different levels. Since we have information about the usage and about the design, it it gives, it lays the foundation basically to so many things that we've just heard about. Also, the fact that it just not only covers individual nodes database information, but also information on an infrastructural level, makes it a very interesting tool for strategy and strategic project support. Also very important, I want to mention that specifically, no data leaves the premises. All is in a virtual appliance on your premises, and nothing leaves the premises. So let me talk about application migration. One of the first things we do with ApplicationInsights is help you draw a map of what you have, understand what you have, understand what is being used and what is not being used. I'm not going to go through all of these boxes here, but this is what we see here is just a diagram. How many users, how many servers, how many databases, how many of those are actually used. And then we go ahead and split those databases up into different database categories. Like we just heard, when we got down from those 90,000 databases to 200 databases, the first step towards that is finding out what is used and what is not being used, and then differentiate into different categories. And what remains after you remove all the orphans and all the user mail files and all the system databases are the ones that really in focus for you. I want to say a few words to database usages and what is involved. It's very important for us, and we've made this and we've learned this with customers basically, that the question is always, is not only is a database used, but who uses it? Is it my VIPs that use it? Is it different departments that use it? How is it used? Used over the web or over the notes client, read-only or read-write, and when was it last used? And how frequently is it used? All these things together can help me determine a strategy for a database to move forward. Database design, we're going to jump into that a little bit more detail later on. So let me just explain to you that when we talk about database design, a number of different factors play into this. There's the complexity of the database, there's its similarity to other databases, there's insights, which are basically search for code patterns. And all that results in a database impact, and this impact is what you see here in the chart on the left-hand side, where we tell you what we can categorize databases by their severity according to the impact. Also, full text search, all of your entire source code is possible. I'm going to show you that right away. Also very important, for everything you see in ApplicationInsights, there's an API interface, and you can get this information and use it in your automated tools, or use it in your processes, or business partners like Maarga can use it to improve their efficiency. So it's really teamwork between all the parts here working on this common goal. Now, I want to take one very specific visualization from ApplicationInsights and give you an idea of how the usage and the design can already tell us a lot about the databases that we have. So what you see here on my screen are all these bubbles are databases. The larger the bubble in size is, the more distinct users the database has. The further a database is on the right here, the more used it is, so the more sessions are on this database. The further database up top, the more complex the database is. Now, if I split this into quadrants, I can go through these quadrants and say, this lower left quadrant, where it's low complexity and low usage, those are probably candidates for sunsetting. I'm going to look at those first if I even need to continue with those databases throughout my migration journey. On the top and on the bottom right, with low complexity and high usage, here are my first targets. Here are databases with a great cost-benefit ratio, the low-hanging fruits, the ones that are not going to be very tough to modernize because the complexity is relatively low, but I will reach a lot of users with those databases. On the top left is quite the opposite, high complexity and very little usage. Probably not databases I will touch immediately, but it's very important to be aware of them and understand the role that they're playing. just like the ones on the top right, where I have very high complexity and very high usage, that indicates that this might be my business critical applications. So these are the ones that I will immediately have to start to analyze, understand how to tie into other applications, to have an eye on them, even though they might not be the first databases that are actually migrated or modernized. The visualization you saw here is, even though we're in PowerPoint slides here, this is a visualization that comes right out of ApplicationInsights. Actually, I'm going to keep this short and spend a little bit more time in the product. Design and code analysis is a very important thing. As I said, we do code insights. As I said, those are the patterns where we look for source code and combinations of source code patterns in the code. And code deduplication is also part of this, because we have found over time that usually if we analyze in a customer environment, we will notice that when it comes to looking at the individual code blocks in a database, there's over 90% code duplication, and that will lead to exactly what I'm going to show you. We're a little bit short on time, so I'm going to jump in here right into similarity. Similarity clusters my databases. So I analyze a couple of hundred databases, and then I say, how many databases are similar to each other when I look at the source code? So if I touch one of those databases, and you see here on the left-hand side here, my first bunch of bubbles, those are all database clusters. Clusters of databases that have 95% or higher similarity of their code base. And if I click on such a cluster here with those 20 databases, I see how they are tied together, basically, what they are similar to and what they're most similar to. And of course, I immediately get the information, what are the template candidates for this cluster, and I can jump right in and see which databases are those, and can even click here and go directly to the database and start analyzing. But the fact this clustering is so important because it helps me understand if I modernize, if I change, if I fix something in this one database, I can immediately replicate that to 20 other databases. And my demo environment is quite small here. You can imagine I'm seeing clusters at customers that are thousands and 10,000s of databases. So this can really be vitally important to understand how databases are connected to each other and who might be my template candidates that I have long lost connection to. So this was one thing, the similarity, very important. Let me also show something fun to you. At least I think it's fun. Code searching your whole code base, and I can do this. I've been working in customer environments with up to 70,000 databases, and just searching the whole code for a certain term. I just look for test here, and I can use irregular expressions or normal test. Just clicking that, seeing exactly the code block that was a part of, seeing exactly which database this code block occurs. That can be extremely handy if you're like my customers that say, okay, I want to find out if there's any hard-coded certifiers or something like that. And if you then create your patterns, you can go here and create your own custom insights, where we provide a couple of already prepared rule sets and already prepared patterns in different areas like mail migration and code findings, operating system dependencies, etc., etc. So there's dozens of patterns here and dozens of ways to understand and interact with your code and try to find roadblocks that in the journey that you have ahead of you. So here, interacting with the source code is very quick and very painless, and it helps you categorize and understand your databases. The third thing I want to show you in ApplicationInsights is my catalog, or the details of one of my databases. And I'm just going to jump into one of my databases here. Excuse me if I'm skipping all kinds of little things here. But I want to show you really the condensed details, and then what we're looking at here are the details of one of these databases. You can see I have information here about my views and a list, very important, a list of views where I can see which ones are actually used and which ones are actually not used. I have usage information here. I have information about the complexity of this database. I have information about the similarity of this database. So which other databases is it similar to? I have also information about these insights that we just talked about, these patterns that I've identified. And again, I can click on the pattern, see this pattern appears in views and forms, click on the form, and bam, I'm right at the source code. And what I can even do here is click on this link here, open in Designer, and it's going to open that design document right in my Notes Designer. There's a little plugin we make available to make that happen. So there's a ton of stuff in here, but why we initially entered this is I wanted to show you something with the usage, and that is the usage by departments. And I think that is a very important thing for many customers to understand which departments are actually using my database. Organization, sales, consulting, development, and IT systems in my case. Also important here, look at that. Understanding who does read-write in a database and who only reads. So who are my content creators? Who are the people who actually fill this database with life, or are the owners of this database, more or less. And I can drill down into this here. If I have sub-departments, I can even drill down to the user list. In this case, it's anonymized. The restrictions in German, Austria, Switzerland, France region are quite severe to looking at details of user activity like that. Obviously, that can be lifted for other areas. Just saying, if we have European customers looking at this, we are prepared for the challenges that we're all facing now with the upcoming act. So those were my 50 minutes. There's a ton more I could show you, and I want to show you, but I think it's time for questions now. Actually, there's one thing I want to show you before we leave, and that is Marvel Client Automate, or cleaning up the client landscape. Because if we identify which databases aren't used anymore, which are not accessed, and I get rid of those databases, there has to be a way to get rid of those databases on the client side as well. And Marvel Client Automate is the perfect piece for that. Marvel Client, our client management software, offers this functionality to get rid of those databases, and obviously the benefits of gigabytes, if not terabytes, of storage, and reduced help desk calls, because end users don't click on buttons that are not there anymore. So there's a ton of value in that as well, and it's a great combination with ApplicationInsights. And I'm specifically mentioning it because it's also part of the offer, of the special offer that we have in course of this webinar. So yeah, you will also be able to take full advantage of that. And that's it. I'm giving back to Scott.
Okay. Thanks, Franz. Thanks for the detailed, application insight. Helps the analysis that can be carried so smooth. Yeah. So I think it's time for Scott to know about the webinar feedback. So I think after this webinar, so you will get a complete guide to Domino apps and remediation during mail migration, so that you will get as a complete guide as an offer of this webinar. And I think upon completion also there will be some you'll get to know some of the offers that we are offering. Yeah.
Yep, so that offer is now in your chat window. If you'll open up the GoToWebinar control panel and go to the chat, there'll be a link that I've just placed in there for you. You just fill out that feedback form quickly, and then you will get this complete guide to Domino apps remediation. So that will be your free gift. So take a couple minutes and do that. We do have some questions that are already coming in, so we do appreciate that, and we'll get to those in just a moment. We'll just give you a little bit of couple more minutes to fill out this feedback form. It's very short. So while we're waiting to do that, again, you can fill out that feedback form. So I do have a couple of questions. The first one is for Franz. So how are you able to get information on database utilization by departments? Is it based on the groups from the NAB?
Actually, it's information, or there's a number of ways how we can get it. The easiest way is if the department field or whatever field in the Domino directory is filled. That's the native way, so to say. If that is written into the app in the person document.
Okay. Perfect. Next question, also it's for you, Franz. Do you look at the Lotus Notes database log to pull the utilization metrics?
We don't look at the log of individual databases. What we look at is the session log of the Domino servers themselves. So the log NSF, if it has the default settings enabled, then that's all we need. What we're specifically looking for are the session activities. That those must not be disabled, but they can be tuned down to only carry a few days or so versus the default 7 days.
Okay, brilliant. This question is for Rika. What has been the most difficult challenge you have faced in a Domino analysis?
That's a good question. So basically, our today webinar will give that answers. No, so we have challenges in bringing all the stakeholders, business teams, and the IT teams together for a discussion that too for a complex application, and also most part the dependency analysis without for a database which will have an internal and external dependency, but there is no documentation exist. So with the help of tool we will be able to identify, but still it needs some effort really to understand what kind of dependency that it has. So these are the I can say many more challenges, but these are the typical challenges that we really need to cross through. Yeah, I think I answered the question.
Okay, perfect. Next question for Franz. How do you calculate application complexity? What are the factors that you take into account there?
That's not an easy question, but it's a good one. And we hear that a lot from customers. What we basically do, for us, the term complexity signifies the amount of design elements and special elements that we find in the databases. How many forms, views, script libraries, how many lines of Lotus script, Java, JavaScript, etc. code, how many special occurrences like reader author fields, or there's a ton of other little things that can be specialities that make it hard to migrate to data, or can make it more complicated to work with a database. And all those things together make up the complexity, and the complexity being just a score, more or less, that is then put in context by its similarity to other databases or by the actual findings that are provided by insights. So,
okay.
It's complete.
Brilliant. The next question, probably an answer from both of you might be in order here, but here's the question. It's kind of long. Give me just a moment. So in your experience, what is a large project for Domino remediation in terms of number of databases? And what is the largest number of databases you have encountered after the rationalization process? So big question there. So what do you consider as a large project? And
so it's difficult. So we don't turn this into a race. Maybe Pangenda has the larger project encountered, or Maarga. No, obviously that's not the case. But I can say the largest customer I have worked with, ApplicationInsights. At the end of the day, we had 90,000 focus databases in scope, and I think there were over 300,000 originally or so.
Yeah, so probably from our side, the case study that I have showed you is a large number of databases, but finally we arrived at its number. So typically we used to, the other customer we handled also had some 90,000 plus databases with them, and finally it drilled down to 5,000 databases and business. So it has multiple categories, business critical, and finance kind of databases. So it has its own category, but finally the count comes to around 5,000 databases. Yeah, that's the maximum count that we handle so far. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. I think on the first part of this question, it's kind of a relative term. I mean, if you have 10,000 databases, but you're a company of 300 users, then that's a large project for them. But
Right.
So I think that one is more relative, but the second part definitely knowing that you have the ability, both Maarga and Panagenda, to handle 10,000, 90,000, 300,000 databases. That's very impressive.
I think the combination is so interesting that if you put something like Application Insights in the hands of a partner who is that capable like Maarga, and they have such great specialists, then they can again take this list and again whittle it down again to exactly the databases that are most important. That's the combination of that, I think, is so powerful.
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. Definitely, and actually that brings in a follow-up question here. What kind of skills would I need to run the domino analysis?
Okay, so to run the analysis, basically we need to have scale on Lotus nodes, probably some amount from the infrastructure side, like about the servers and the location it's scattered. So some kind of administration skills also required, and also know from the business side, who are the stakeholders that need to be involved for this kind of analysis. So and a subject matter expert is required. So and probably an architect if available. So these are the people required. Skill definitely is a Lotus Notes is must, and also a kind of infrastructure related skill is also required.
Okay. Perfect. Another question has come in. So what are your suggestions to take for the next steps after analysis of the environment and moving on to the process of migration, redesign, or redesign on another platform? So, okay, we've done the analysis, then what?
Yeah. Yeah, so so analysis, we have drilled down the database, say, to a number of 200. So really we need to we'll come to know the category of applications. So whether it is a document library kind of applications, or some critical transactional data kind of thing. So to address all this, so we need to have a migration roadmap. So where are these applications going to sit? So what is the target platform that the applications, analyzed applications are going to? So that is something we need to identify after the analysis. So that will be your next step.
Okay. Yeah, and I think Maarga has done a webinar on this before, kind of like, hey, where to take the databases if you're going to migrate them. So we can follow up with Christoph on that question. So thank you very much for the questions. Okay, so we are running just about out of time. A couple more quick questions have come in. I'm assuming this one will be for Franz. Can I export the data that I see in the Insights application to Excel?
Yes, you can. There's a couple of different areas where a native Excel export is available, like as we saw the catalog, where I have my list of databases. But I mentioned this briefly during the presentation. Everything you see, or let's say 95% of what you see in Application Insights, you can also get via the API, and to this API you can connect, with Excel or with Tableau or with whatever analytics solution you prefer and you use in your environment.
Okay, brilliant. So the data is not just sitting there in your application; they can get it out for analysis. They run their own types of analysis. Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, perfect. I think we have all the questions answered. Great audience participation. Thank you very much. And then just as a reminder, this is, we have recorded this. You'll be sent a link out. And then also if you have follow-up questions, please contact Maarga and PanAgenda and you'll get your additional questions answered offline. And so Franz and Rika, thank you very much for your presentation. Very insightful, very informative, and we appreciate your time in preparing this. I know it's not always easy to prepare all the slides and the web for the webinar, but we do appreciate that.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks,
You're welcome.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for joining in.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.